Afghanistan is fighting for its future and it is losing. Every day more territory falls into the hands of the Taliban and the civilian government looks increasingly helpless before the terrorists. It's on the verge of losing control over northern Afghanistan. This could lead to a collapse of the Afghan government. Everything now hinges on Mazar-e-Sharif, on whether the government is able to retain it. A team from WION has been there for 2 days now, reporting straight from the heart of the conflict. Our correspondent Anas Malik was near the borders of Mazar-e-Sharif, and while he was reporting explosions believed to be triggered by the Taliban went off nearby, Anas was inside an Afghan military vehicle and managed to capture everything on his phone. Take a look.
I'm standing on a military vehicle, an armored vehicle, and these are the areas behind me are those which are controlled by the Taliban. There happens to be one of these as you can hear the blast as well. There happens to be that these territories behind us are those of the Taliban. These are the undeclared or unmarked boundaries that are that of the Taliban. The roadblocks that you see, that is marked. That is a territory that is marked, that is assumed of the Taliban. You can hear there is intermittent firing that is ongoing, and there is use of heavy weapon as well.
The situation is serious, to say the least. Mazar-e-Sharif is the largest city in northern Afghanistan. It is central to the civilian government's control over the region. So if Mazar-e-Sharif falls, the Afghan government will lose northern Afghanistan. How is the government poised? So far, they've managed to push back the Taliban, but another attack now looks imminent. The Afghan forces are losing their military assets. These photographs came out today. These are members of the Taliban posing in front of an Mi-24 military helicopter. This chopper, by the way, was gifted by the government of India to Afghanistan. Now it looks like the Taliban has taken it. But the helicopter looks like it's broken. Apparently, an engine is also missing. Meanwhile, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani visited Mazar-e-Sharif today to boost the morale of the troops. And yet it's hard to remain upbeat when one capital after another is falling. 3 more provincial capitals fell to the Taliban today. The total number now stands at 9. The Taliban controls 9 provincial capitals. There are 34 in all. It is going to be a tough fight for them. Why is the government failing? They've sacked their army chief today and the acting finance minister has resigned and left the country. Ashraf Ghani is running out of his team and his options. What does he do then? Reach out to local warlords, militia groups. The president held talks in Mazar-e-Sharif. Earlier this week, he reportedly agreed to arm pro-government militias against the Taliban. The government, you see, is desperate. It faces the prospect of a collapse within weeks. The Americans have conducted an assessment, a government collapse within 90 days, they say. That's how bad things are. Earlier, the American estimate was a government collapse in 6 to 12 months. Now they've revised it to 90 days. That's how soon Kabul could fall. Is the US going to do anything to prevent it? The short answer is no. US President Biden says the Afghans must fight for themselves. Listen to this.
Afghan leaders have to come together. We lost death and injury, thousands of American personnel. They've got to fight for themselves, fight for their nation. The United States, I'll insist we continue to keep the commitments we made of providing close air support, making sure that their Air Force functions and is operable, resupplying their forces with food and equipment, and paying all their salaries. But they've got to want to fight.
America does not want to get its hands dirty anymore. It doesn't matter that this dirt is of their own making. They want to call the shots in Afghanistan, but from outside. This week, US envoy Zalmay Khalilzad landed in Doha. He warned the Taliban that they will remain global pariahs if they underestimate a military takeover of Kabul. The Taliban's offensive has killed more than 2,000 civilians in May and June alone, but the US still wants to have a dialogue with the terrorists. Yesterday, there was a meeting in Doha, a multilateral meeting on the peace process for Afghanistan. Representatives from the United States, China, the United Kingdom, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and the United Nations, also the European Union, were present. Did they find a solution to end the violence? Well, they did not. They just agreed that a political solution is the only way forward. For months now, world powers led by the US have been promising a peace deal, but there's no deal and no peace. The Taliban just won't stop, and the West keeps pushing for talks because they see Afghanistan as a faraway problem. America blames Afghan leaders for the Taliban's offensive, and Europe pushes back Afghan refugees who are trying to flee the war. The interior ministers of Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Greece, and the Netherlands have all written a letter to the European Union saying what? Talk to Kabul and make sure that there are no Afghan refugees. These countries want to deport Afghan citizens. Going by the latest estimates from the United Nations, more than 300,000 Afghans have been internally displaced due to the recent conflict. Who is responsible for all of this? Can the US and its NATO allies shed all responsibility? The displacements were triggered by the Taliban's offensive after the American and European forces began leaving without a plan in place. The US and its allies came to Afghanistan to install a democracy. They're now leaving behind two big problems, a civil war and a refugee crisis. And they're conveniently washing their hands of all these problems, making predictions on when Kabul will fall. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.